Oh, hi there. Yes, I know my hair is not looking too great right now. Needs to grow in a little bit. Anyway, more importantly, uh, going to continue the conversation about the Humboldt Bronco tragedy and the organ donation registry that they're trying to push forward on the 7th of this month. Okay, for starters, I do have a biased opinion about the medical scene for various reasons, mostly because I had a medically induced sore throat for 7 years and been treated like crap by them for no good reason. So I shouldn't allow that to cloud my judgment and give me a slanted opinion without sound reasoning. Now, when I mention things, because quite often I run down Justin Trudeau and his sense of morality, blah, 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 blah. I do that all the time on social media. I don't make that many videos about it, but I do it all the time anyway on, not Twitter, but, mostly Facebook and stuff, whatever. Anyway, what I wanted to say was there is more than enough organs to be sold uh, around the world that people in North America, because our population is relatively small, and there's a reason Canada, United States, Europe are considered first world countries and continents. I mean, most of Europe anyway. They can afford these organs. Um, there is a morality issue because essentially they're stolen organs or they're bought dirt cheap to the point where that's basically taking it from somebody. If somebody's disadvantaged and has no choice but to sell their organ for a pittance, then that's kind of more or less stealing. It's like, here's a few stale donuts for your effort, basically. And Justin Trudeau, rightfully so, said, no, we're not buying these organs. Um, because the thing is, the two countries in particular that would be very, very interested in, going hog wild and selling organs would be the obvious suspects being China and India. Uh, they do have an organ harvesting program, and organs they're worth a lot of money. However, if endless droves of people are simply there for their organic material in their bodies for selling, then that kind of creates kind of a matrix type scenario uh, where people aren't really people anymore. They're there to be, you know, uh, exploited for their resources, and then that kind of gets kind of crazy and fucked up real quickly. I mean, it is anyway. The fact that countries certain gravitate towards Asia when they're in need of an organ. So there are places in the world where people have too much money, they're in need of an organ, they go to China, and they'll keep finding organs until somebody gets one that's going to work for them. And 10 people's lives versus one doesn't really sound very nice. And these are things to Justin Trudeau's credit, and every other Canadian prime minister, because we said no. But it's not all good reasons why he said no. I mean, the obvious reason is because of how inhumane it is, but the other reason, you can't really trust those organs. There could be something microscopically horribly wrong with them. And most people aren't going to want a convicts or a disadvantaged persons organ in their body anyway. I mean, I suppose if it's life or death, they'll take it. But I mean, plenty of people go to those places who have money and go through the transplants and things like that, and it's pretty spooky stuff. Really spooky stuff. And as I briefly touched base on the last time I talked about this, is that the third world is actually making medical advances much faster than the Western world, simply because they have more guinea pigs to experiment on and try over and over and over again and finding out exactly fine tuning how they do this particular thing, and they do that with everything. But this one in particular, it's like they have an endless supply, and they're money hungry people. They're communist China is very much about making as much money as possible, and that is a resource of theirs. I did get to thinking though, what does organ donation have to do with the Humboldt Broncos tragedy? And it is, a question to be asked because, I mean, on the surface, it looks like they're just gravitating towards that because there was so much support for it. And now they're trying a new campaign to, make more money essentially. Because although you're not going to make any money for it by donating your organ, they're going to make a lot of money off your organ. A kidney's worth like $50,000, but you're not going to get a penny of it if you donate it. That would make you a chump, actually. But again, there are times where organ donation is, a good thing. It helps people out, yada yada yada. And I'm trying not to have a biased opinion about the whole thing. But you may have heard that sentences have been laid to the driver who was responsible for the Humboldt tragedy and the owner of the company. Supposedly, the owner of the company got a slap on the wrist, $5,000. That was it. The driver pled guilty. I forget how many years he got. And I got to thinking, what if part of their deal was they offered to donate their organs for a lesser sentence? And I mean, they're from essentially that part of the world. And what if their case was, their defense case was, well, we'll, go into the rabbit hole and talk about the evil of the world and yada, yada, yada. Because, the guy who was the driver in the Humboldt tragedy, uh, realistically, without intervention, he wouldn't last long in a prison. Not at all. Um, and no, donating an organ doesn't make things all right. I mean, I suppose it should be considered, but it doesn't. That's obviously way too little, way too late. Um, but that is the theory that I'm going with, is that they've offered that. And I think what's been said on the news is it's a bunch of lies. Court cases of this magnitude don't get settled that quickly. Sure, the guy's in prison. Yes, that is true. But these things go on and on and on and on and on. But this is a story they've told the public because they, as far as they're concerned, want the public to have closure, this, that, and the other. And this is more than likely the last big push for, to exploit a tragedy, really, is this organ donation thing going on in April. In a few days, I meant. Some people, it's a difficult conversation to have because a lot of people go, "Oh, well, you bastard! There are people who really need organs. Why the fuck would you say nasty things about the whole system?" That's because you're ignorant. I am gonna say, bad things about a fucking corrupt system. If you don't like facts, then just go back to your little turtle shell, because that's not how things are. And I don't care who tells you, no, this is the way they are. I don't care if they get mad and go, try the sanctimonious anger type routine. I've seen it before, and on this subject as well. And it's like, yeah, that's not a proof of anything. People lie. You have to understand that people fucking lie. And okay, I'm not there. I don't look at that sort of stuff. I'm not around people who look at that sort of stuff. I'm merely speculating. And, I use deductive reasoning and the fact that we live in a capitalist society and how organization is seen in the West and why it's fundamentally stupid, the perception that especially Canadians have of the system. Because as I said, the medical field is advancing much faster in the third world because of the endless supply of fresh biological material, as in human beings for experimentation. And, you know, it would be a good thing in a sick, twisted sort of way if they were able to perfect organ transplants, in case there are people in the future who really need an organ. And it's not about money and it's not about someone else's suffering or anything like that. It's simply to save their life. Okay? That's fine. But the process to get there is a lot of bad things about that. A lot of bad things. It actually is almost overdoes any good that it will come out of it. And I mean, people in the Western world sometimes are presented with policies the governments are trying to push, and they don't actually think of the most intelligent response. And I'm going to get back to human cloning, especially of specific organs and things like that, because that was a thing that people were thinking of. And actually, the American government went ahead and did that anyway, regardless of the general public's opinion. Anyway, people were adamantly opposed to that. The advantage to have had that program, be public and people understand that and all that, and sort of be on board with it, would have been that. I mean, it would have been, a grievous Frankenstein freakish series of experiments, no doubt about. But the advantage is that they wouldn't be looking for the simpler explanation, simpler answers, being, actually not bothering with the cloning, simply, yeah, in third world countries, yeah, it's just kind of abducting people. Um, yeah, and you know, it's not only that, but in order for the West to learn, you know, how they can better the procedure and see things faster, and how things operate in third world countries, they actually have to go there and see it for themselves, because video is quite manipulative. And I think I can speak for most people on this. I don't want to be around people who are vicious Frankenstein type people who, have no moral qualms about harvesting organs from prisoners or, anybody really in a third world country, and seeing them do it over and over and over and over again. No, I don't want that job. I don't know what kind of a person would want that job, but like I said, somebody has to go to Asia and see that for themselves. It's like oof, spooky stuff. And yeah, I think, oh, like, you know, it's a terrifying subject. This will give you a dose of the Globus Hystericus real damn quick if you're not careful. That's why a little bit of booze is never a bad thing. Just, in moderation, of course. Sweet Mary and Joseph. That stuff is spooky. Goddamn terrifying it is. Um, and even like who knows what big a wide scale it is. I mean, everyone goes on about the economic boom that China had, is still having, in a sense, according to the media anyway. And it's not all, iPhones and things like that they're making their money on. It's other things like what I've been talking about. And, I don't want to contribute to a horrifying system like that. And I certainly don't want to be an idiot who, essentially gets a, oh, here's your thank you card, and you've done a good job. Somebody else made a pile of money off of you. I don't dig that. That to me sounds like a bunch of bullshit. Um, and as I said before, like, look, if you know 100% that your organ's going to somebody, uh, and you're really committed to it, and you understand everything about it, and you don't get the sugar coated version, treating you like an idiot version, and you still want to go through it, that's your call, and I suppose you did do a good thing. However, I don't think that many people would actually go through it, especially when shown video footage of how the system as a whole really is. I don't think anybody would, dare go near that monster. I mean, it's easy to, dismiss somebody talking about it like me with no visuals, but if somebody else showed visuals, I don't have any visuals. I don't want any visuals. I don't want to think of it that way. I'm interested in the intellectual quality of my video, is not the other factors. That's somebody else's bag. Um, and it's like, yeah, I mean, like, Oregon Nation and the Humboldt Broncos, the two things don't coincide. They're what, like, none of the Humboldt Bronco players had an organ problem. So, or I mean, so as far as I know, anyway, it wouldn't even matter. I mean, they don't really discuss the injuries, kind of like with hockey players: upper body injury, lower body injury, mental illness, yada yada yada. So, I mean, you couldn't even really trust the media anyway. I mean, they have their reasons for lying, but it doesn't mean they're good reasons. Doesn't mean anything. And oh, I don't know what else to think, but I think I'm gonna tail this video off because I'm starting to spook myself out here a little bit anyway. That, and I gotta use the washroom. I think it's got something to do with my medication. Anyway, talk to you people later. Have a good one.